Okay. Wow. First, I love my brother. I love you. Chiefly, I want to honor the Jordan family and his deep personal friends, cool, that's you, who helped get this fella this far. I see you back there. It's all love. When I move around Mike or Bakari or Creed or Donnie or Michael B. Handsome or Sexiest Man Alive, Adonis, I'm reminded of the tale of Hercules, the story of a young man who was born as a mortal. And he gets to a certain place at a certain time, and he gets to a crossroads. And the gods say to him, okay, you can go right and live a life of vice, which is fun. And we do have fun, but it's fun. It's all the things your parents say you stay away from. And then you've got the road to virtue. And on the road to virtue, it's going to be tough. There's 12 rounds, actually. They call it the 12 labors of Hercules. And this morning, thinking about what I was going to say about my brother, I thought about that story. Michael, to me, represents a mythical character. I don't think it's a act of luck or an act of chance that so many people see him as Adonis, that he was cast as Adonis, that he has taken this story and pushed it forward. So in these 12 rounds, you got Hercules dealing with lions and tigers and bears. There's actually a labor in which he actually has to steal a belt from an Amazon, a belt. I don't think that's a coincidence. In my time with Mike, I like to say I'm new to the party. I've seen him fight in many rounds, in many things. Sometimes it's his body giving out in the day of shooting, and him looking at me in the eye and saying, let's go, let's continue. And it's hot, very much like Hercules in Hades, traveling down. We're in that final round, it's hot, we're tired. His empathetic agility is being pushed to its nth degree. He's got to deal with my crazy. Everybody's pulling on him. Liz needs something. Girlfriend's tripping. And I'm giving him hell in there. But he's dealing with it with a mythic effort, with a godlike integrity. I watched my brother deal with many things. Sometimes on the press tour, tired, I get to go home after lunch. He's got another round, then we've got the premiere. I watched him stand up straight and smile and be grateful and keep his heart open when folks were coming, when the haters come, and the haters come, bro. I watched him move with integrity each and every round. The 12th round idea is that of the championship round. You got the 10 rounds. These are things I learned from Mike. You got the 10 rounds, that's pretty standard, but it's those last 2 rounds are the championship round. And I've watched Mike every time swing and fight and win. Sometimes those things happen at Canoga Park in a Motel 6 when he's up against it and he thinks he's going to lose his actor. That was me. We're having problems with the deal. And I watched this man, this movie star, drive to the hood and sit in a Motel 6 with me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. And we don't know each other. That's a champion heart. That's a championship round. I watched his brother mend his brother one day during rehearsals. I fell through a drain and I tore my knee up bad. I walked into the room hollering, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. The first man that got to my side was Michael B. Jordan. And he took me in, he doctored me up. He looked me in my eyes, he said, you're going to be okay? Everything's going to be okay? And he sent me on my way. And I was okay. When I got back, he was the first person with that movie star smile, with them beautiful eyes. It's hard to stand next to him. They keep being like, hey, you want to take a picture with Michael? Yeah, if I have to. It's all right. You laughing because it's true. But he was there, and he's continued to be there. And then there's the round of intimacy, and I'll end it with this, where it takes a lot to move through the world the way he does. And I watch him, and I admire him, and he encourages me. Creed 1, well done, Cool, inspired me to, get an Equinox membership. Creed 2, I invited about 13, 14 young black men at the Yale School of Drama to check it out because I knew that whatever Michael B. Jordan was doing and putting it into the world had some good in it, and that he represented us in the best way possible. One day, me and Michael are sitting in this restaurant. It's early on and I'll conclude. We're sitting there and we look at each other and we're eating. And I think we're having a mezcal, which I'm a Texan, and that's quite standard for me. And I don't know if Mike had one. I don't believe he had. It was his first one, which I'm quite proud to say, hell yeah. And we sitting there and we're chatting, and maybe it's the mezcal, or maybe it was the divine connection between us, that we kind of looked at each other in the eye and we said, hey man, let's be friends. Just kind of like you do when you're talking to somebody, in high school or elementary school, and you say, hey man, you want to be friends? And we say, yeah, let's be friends, man. And he's held that contract up so deeply and so fully, and it breaks my heart with so much joy and satisfaction to call you my friend, brother. I'm so glad Cool went first, because he walked through all your movie stardom shit, because I'm just talking about the fella I know, the fella I trained with, the fella that, punched me in the face multiple times. That's the guy I know, and that's the guy I've come to love. So this Hercules story, at the end, he goes these 12 rounds, and the gods come down, and they take him to Mount Olympus, and he transforms from man to deity, from temporary to eternal. We talk a lot about legacy, my brother. In the quiet times between the anime credits, I see that look in your eyes. We've all witnessed it. That's what this moment is. Today, brother, you go from man to God. You sit amongst Olympus, and I honor you. I love you. And we are all so proud to call you our son, our brother, but chiefly, I am extremely honored to call you my friend. And I love you. And I'm very happy about this. And don't be talking later about it. But you deserve it. No man on the planet I know deserves it more. I love you to the moon and back. That's that. Thank you.
All right. What's good, people? Hope everybody's well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Yeah, man, we had to get this in. I was excited to go check this out. So I'm equally excited to be able to talk about it with you good people today. Um, but this is not something that I can really do alone. This needs to be celebrated with others. So before we get there, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will, so we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. Shout out to Christopher Williams for the support, as well as an early donation. Shout out to Wannabe Mystic, much appreciated. Says, salute, Doc. Your channel has helped me with my depression and showed me that we can be so much more than what the world tells us we are. Your work is saving lives. You, Gigi, and BGS deserve all the support, man. That is much appreciated. I really, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to get through. So, what I want to do early on is go ahead and get one of the brothers in. Now, one of the brothers I wanted to have here today, brother Artisan MC, wasn't able to make it. He's at work. He's putting in that work as a master craftsman, doing his thing. So it will be a conversation between myself and the good brother here, Layman's Journal. What's going on, man?
It's going good, going good. What's up, everybody?
Now,
Like to see in the chat.
before we get started, I want y'all to help me wish the good brother Layman's Journal a happy birthday. We want to extend that to him because it's not often we get to do that kind of thing. So how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling older, but I'm feeling good.
Okay, I'm glad those two things go together.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
You gonna do any celebrating?
No, I'm gonna treat it like another day.
All right.
Another day.
That's what's up. I had to start with that clip because I ran across that a little earlier, and one of the things I liked about it was, the brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, I really appreciated that, which is interesting because, we get to see another dimension of brotherhood in the film. So I had to put that up there because I don't think we get to see it often in Hollywood when it comes to black men. So I had to celebrate it. Celebrate it. You know what I mean? I thought that the connection, and that's something that I've noticed with Jordan, tends to happen because when we saw, some of the images that came out after the first Black Panther of him and Chadwick,
Right.
I was like, wow, in one vein, when I first saw some of those images, I was like, all right, well, that's cool. But, afterwards, it had a whole new context, but there's something about Jordan where, he seems to develop those relationships even with, the director, what's the brother's name who directed
Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogler. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to develop that. But before we jump in, let me tell you, Layman's Journal did a great review, non-spoiler review. As y'all know, tonight is spoilers. But check that if you haven't. If you don't want to hear spoilers or if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to log off. Go check the non-spoiler review. And I do believe Artisan did one as well. So check that out and then go, see the flick. I mean, I'm going to start off by telling you, I do think the film is worth going to see. I enjoyed it. I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to let you know from the jump. I enjoyed it. Go check the film out. That's just where I'm coming from with it. Any preliminary statements you want to extend to them?
Oh, I enjoyed it as well. Maybe for different reasons than others, but I saw it in what's called IMAX. It was kind of like IMAX, so I had a huge screen, great experience. I loved it. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Okay. That's what's up. And I can tell you, my son in particular really appreciated your review because I'm not into anime much, but he's deep into it. So when he got a chance to hear your review, he got excited before we went to see it.
Oh yeah.
So I want to thank you for that because you brought a whole nother dimension to it. He was bouncing around trying to tell me stories about anime and all of that. But I just wanted to show this real quick. I thought this was important. Let me try and blow this up a little bit. These little pop-ups. If you can see this, I guess it's only gonna let me go so far with it. But if you can see the look on Chadwick's face, you know what I mean, and you can make sense of it in the midst of that, knowing what we know afterwards. This picture here takes on a whole new meaning. You know what I mean? And I see very few actors that engage that. You know, so I like to see that it seems to be a consistent thing with Michael B. Jordan. You know, I've seen him. You know, the relationship he's developed with a number of brothers seems to kind of go there, and I appreciate that because I want to see more brotherhood. I want to see brotherhood. So that's just, you know, it's something I just wanted to throw out there real quick. Because I saw that kind of relationship with them, but you know, the way they used it in the film actually worked. You know, in terms of that, did you have any you know, immediate reflections on how brotherhood kind of worked in this film, or didn't work in your opinion?
Yeah, you know, it's funny going back to what you were saying earlier, how Michael B. Jordan tries to reach out and have real friendships with his other black male actors that he works with, is that it goes against this whole narrative of there can only be one, where you have this jealousy amongst black actors. You know, I have to be the black comedian, I have to be the black leading man, and it's good to see that. You know, that's why I like so much about the tribute that he did to his a Walk of Fame induction.
Right.
But yeah, you saw that in here there. You know, even when they were starting off as young kids, and later when he was coming out of prison, you know, he didn't just throw him off. You know, he tried to help him out, and that's something, you know, I did enjoy seeing that in the movie as well.
Yeah. Well, let me see here. Let me do this. Let me go ahead. Y'all know how I like to start these. Let me see. There we go. We always got to start with the info. So looking at imdb.com, y'all know the deal. Creed 3. Directed by Michael B. Jordan, right? This is his first directorial debut. And I liked a lot of what he did. You know, more than anything, I think and this was after, you know, checking out Journal's video on this. I really liked that he brought his own interests into what he was doing. You know, I applauded the creativity it took to do that, and the courage. The thing about it, if you've never put yourself out there, you've never stood up and gotten in front of people and put yourself out there, you probably wouldn't appreciate how much of a risk and how much courage it takes to take this thing that you like, whether it's anime or, you know, sword, whatever it is, and put that out there and say, this is who I am, and let me tell this story, let me do this thing. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And I appreciated that he was willing to go there. Any thoughts about any of that?
You know what? When I saw I didn't know about the anime influence until before I watched the movie. Now I knew he was a Naruto fan. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I know that's sacrilege. I didn't watch Naruto. I watched other stuff, but when I saw the action sequences, I said, "Oh, this is some Dragon Ball Z stuff right here."
Right.
You know, and it made me smile because, you know, coming up, I used to watch Dragon Ball Z back in the early 90s, you know, and it was hard to find anime. And then back then it was waking up at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday and getting that one episode.
Right.
You know, and it was back in the day before we had VCRs and DVRs. So if you missed it, that was it. You know, and you know, it always stopped at like episode 99 or somewhere. So, you know, you had to go to like Suncoast or some mom and pop store to pay a bunch of money to get a video, stuff like that. It was so hard to get. And so, you know,
with the porn videos behind the shower.
There you go, with the beads. Yeah. And I do not miss those days. But, you know, coming up, you know, you used to tell people like, you know, I saw this anime, I saw this Dragon Ball Z, and people would laugh at you. Like he was talking about when he was in was middle school, high school, that girl was calling him corny. You know, I've been there. I've been that guy, the corny anime guy. You know, and I was smiling so much to see this brother get to this point where he can make this movie and then share his passion that he's had for us. Probably we were about the same age. So he's probably had it for like 20, 30 years, 20 some years. And so I saw these action sequences and I said, okay, okay, I see what he's doing here.
Oh yeah, we got we're gonna get to that because you know what, I didn't know what to expect, and when you said it, I was like, oh, really? And then sure enough, sitting in the theater, I was like, oh, y'all gonna go there. So we're gonna get there in a second. Now, as far as me in anime, y'all gotta know I checked out my let me see. The last time I really got into anime, we talking Robotech in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking 4th through 6th grade, and that was my jam. I loved Robotech, but I never really got into anime a whole lot. So my son, on the other hand, is an encyclopedia. He loves it, and him and all his friends watch everything. So this was actually a way to kind of bring us together, you know, because he would talk about the anime elements to it, and we'd go from there. And he was that much more excited. So I think what Jordan may have tripped up on is really tapping into a whole, you know, a couple of generations of folks who are seeing him bring this into live action, because he did something similar in Black Panther, right? In terms of the outfit that he wore.
Yeah, he was in that Vegeta inspired outfit with that Killmonger.
I remember the first time someone said that, I said, nah, but then I looked at the pictures and I was like, oh my goodness, all right. You know, so he's tapping into something that I think can end up, okay, Donnie, you're right. Afro Samurai is my jam. I can't lie about that. That joint is dope. Afro Samurai is dope. But anyway, so we can see here, you know, right, Keenan Coogler, Zach Balin, and Ryan Coogler, having done the story. My understanding is, I think Keenan is Ryan's cousin. Is that what it is?
I think it's his brother. I thought he was his brother.
Is his brother? Okay.
Yeah.
So he writes this. I don't think. Well, you kind of broke this down as far as his experience level. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does it mean for someone like him to get a movie on this scale, this stage in his career?
I was shocked by this because typically actors start off as the small independent films, you know, and I said, okay, so he's getting Creed 3. This is a big budget. This is a big franchise. This was a huge leap.
Right.
And so I was worried as to how much experience he had or whether or not he know what he was doing. But I was shocked as anyone when I learned that he was a director. You know, I was kind of shaky on it. But you know, we'll get to it. But I thought he did a good job.
Yeah. Let me see. I think hold on, because let me see if I can find the here, I'll just put it up right here. And if you hadn't seen it, you can I see some people asking, but here we go. So there we go. Killmonger is Vegeta.
There you go.
You know, and it took this picture for me to go, oh, it's like that, you know.
Yeah.
I just didn't, you know, I didn't see it and all of that, but yeah. So
Yeah,
and
even
that was a script. I think he initiated that. But go ahead.
You know, even when he came to the personality of Killmonger, you saw a lot of Vegeta in there. You know, Vegeta is also a prince as well. And so you saw a lot of that anger and pride that he brought to that Killmonger role, that you can tell there was some Vegeta inspiration there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. So let me see. Let's just go through a little bit of this. So I thought it was on the screen. Let me get that back up there then. Take heed to the banner at the bottom, support Layman's Journal. You see the Cash App, so send the brothers some support. Channel is doing well, I believe. He's doing some excellent videos, so support the brother. Anyway, so there we go. So you can see some of the images there. And these brothers, I mean, I don't think I have to say it. I think everybody is well aware of this. If you didn't even know the story, these brothers came fit as hell.
Oh, man.
I ain't seen it like this since the 80s with Mr. T and you know, Rocky 3 and 4. Like, these brothers are coming just fit. It's ridiculous. You know, I know some gym memberships went up behind watching this freaking movie, boy. Y'all know the deal. Michael B., Tessa Thompson, Jonathan Majors, Wood Harris reprising his role. Felicia Rashad comes back, right? You got Adonis and Bianca's daughter, played by Mila Davis Kent, Mara. So we see a number of returning faces, even Victor Drago. Right?
That was a surprise. I didn't know he was going to be in the movie.
I didn't either. What also surprised me was Pretty Ricky Conlin coming back in from the first movie.
Yeah.
You know, that was interesting. You know,
I like that scene. I like I was happy to see him get him back.
Yeah, there's definitely a point when the student becomes the master, and you got to acknowledge that transformation. But I like to cover the basics just so we can see what's going on with who's there and what's happening. So let's deal with it. You know what I mean? So we start the movie out. Really kind of let me see. Well, where would you like to start? Where do you think is a good place we could begin?
I think he starts in the ring. He gets this rematch with Conlin. I think it's Creed's last match. I think it's both of their last matches.
Yeah,
And
because Ricky's been in jail, right?
who? Conlin?
Ricky Conlin. I think he
right.
went
He went to jail into part one. It was a weapons charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're in the ring, and I think they're both of their last fights. And you start to see the influence early, where you see them fighting, and you see Creed's eyes staring towards this open spot, and it looks like he's losing, but the whole time you see him baiting him.
He's baiting him, yeah. And so you see the skill level, and it's interesting to note we don't get Sylvester Stallone, ergo we don't get Rocky. So we're not watching a young Creed that's still getting direction from his old master, his old trainer. Excuse me, I'm in my martial arts bag, but in his old trainer, what you're getting is a seasoned pro who's operating on his own thought processes, his own reflections, his own skill level, his own strategy. So we see that here. And so he's baiting pretty Ricky Conlin, and Ricky's talking mess as Ricky does. Yep. And he said, "This is going to be just like the first fight. It's going to be just like the first fight. I'm coming here to, to get my belt. It is what it is." And he's talking mess, and the whole time, Donnie isn't saying anything.
What he's saying? It's the same combo.
What's that?
Please tell him he was the same combo.
Mm-hmm.
He was putting on him, but he wasn't worried. He was grinning the whole time. I love that.
I love seeing brothers master their craft. I really do. And I think that's one of the things you got to see. And that's a whole nother side piece I won't get into too deeply here, but we don't often get to see Black men as characters who've mastered their craft, in my humble opinion. So I like when I finally get to see, brothers in position doing what they've done and mastered and doing it for all to see. And so you get to see Donnie as a master boxer.
Right.
It's a whole different, level of presentation. Go ahead.
Right, because I think after that, of course he knocks out Pretty Boy, we see him jump up 3 years later, and he now is I guess he's like a manager, trainer, promoter, mentor. He has his own roster of fighters.
Right. And which is another step, his wife makes fun of him for a minute and said he's in his what do you call it? Don King. Don King. Thank you. He's in his Don King bag, but it really does speak to a graduation of sorts. He not only masters boxing, but then he goes out and he masters the business of boxing. And that's something that's important for us to talk about, because how many of us really get to see brothers who have mastered the craft of what they've done and then stepped out of it and come back at a mastery level, having conquered the business end of it. We don't get to see it all the time. There's some that have been able to do it, but it's beautiful to see brothers on that level. So he's got the champion, he's got the champion in his stable, as it were, and he's doing big things, right? He's spending time with the family, the business is going. We see him on billboards, not as Michael B. Jordan, but as Adonis Creed.
Right. So
he's actually, in his business, expanding it, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that graduation of sorts?
I loved it. I grew up in the 80s, and it was good to see Michael Jordan come up. But him and Magic, but they were primarily pitchmen.
Right.
And it was primarily, I think the one I think about most prominently is LeBron, where he came in with ownership. He came in with his boys and putting them on and having a whole team.
Right.
And we're starting to see that now in sports now, where men are controlling their brands. They're not just taking checks and spending a whole bunch of money and just doing a bunch of crazy stuff with it. And you see that with Adonis as well. I thought that was I agree with you. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
To see them come into ownership to where they're not just being used or going broke.
Exactly. And you could tell and that might be, I could be wrong here, because I don't have the inside track, but that might have something to do with having the brothers who are writing the script the way they are. You got Ryan, you got what's the brother's name? Keenan.
Mhm.
To have those brothers writing the script, I can't help but wonder, in someone else's hands, is it just another story of they not only did they leave boxing, but they left boxing a little punch drunk, maybe with a little CTE, and
Yeah.
then they're just pitchmen for someone else's business. But to make the decision of keeping, Creed clear thinking, intelligent, clearly
Mhm.
articulate, and then on top of that, mastering the art, the business of boxing and managing others. I can't help but wonder if having those brothers write that screenplay had anything to do with that. Because the way they have this written down, they say Ryan wrote, they said story by Ryan Coogler, screenplay by Keenan. I think that has something to do with it, but you tell me.
Yeah, I think, I don't know for sure if that was the case, but I think that was definitely the theme. Because you talk about in the previous Rocky films or any kind of boxes, you see guys go until they can't go anymore.
Yeah, man.
And then you hear stories years later about how they broke and they can't walk and they're living in
Yes.
a home and they
Yes.
need money,
Yeah.
you know. And it's good to see that, even with Creed, when he went out on his last fight, he didn't go out as, a broken man. He was still on top.
Yes.
Kind of
Exactly.
like I'm a Lions fan, so he went out like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. He went out with a whole bunch left in the tank on
Mm-hmm.
his terms.
Right. On his terms.
You know,
Exactly.
I
Because
think
going as far back as Jack Johnson, we've seen boxers come back in because they needed money.
right,
And they're in
right,
their 40s and their 50s. They needed money. As a matter of fact, we know that one of the films that many people probably saw in the trailers before watching Creed 3 is the upcoming film on, oh man, how am I missing my names on everything, man? George Foreman. There's an
oh
upcoming
yeah,
film on
yeah.
George Foreman that's
Mhm.
coming out, and the trailer played before watching Creed 3. So if you haven't seen Creed 3, if you haven't seen the trailer for George Foreman, you can check. You can probably find it on YouTube. But that's an upcoming film. But for the most part, a lot of our favorite boxers, ended up having to come back because money was funny, and
Mhm.
that's always kind of sad. And then sometimes they even, toward the end of their career, they'll get beat by a fairly inexperienced young guy with a lot of
Yeah.
power. And it's always one of the saddest things I've ever seen is when your hero goes down. But
Mhm.
that's one of the things they kind of push away from with this by making sure Donnie, as you said, goes out on top.
Right.
So, but I think, yeah, I think I was interrupting you when you were about to say something.
No, right. You were talking about I didn't see the trailer for Foreman, but I do know he lost the money that he had in his youth, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he had to come back. So yeah, I think that was important to have that image in there.
Yeah. And of course, with Foreman, the reason the story is being told is because he wins the belt back at an
Right.
older age. But much of the time, those guys come back in and, they're just trying to get a check. They're trying to pay some bills. And,
Mhm.
mostly don't win the championship belt back. So, anyway, that being said, we get a little, kind of early teaser on when they do a kind of flashback to Donnie and Dame as young men. You get to see a little bit of the skill of Dame as an upcoming boxer.
Right.
You get to see Donnie kind of damn near as his roadie. I mean, they're boys,
Mhm.
but he's kind of carrying the Dame stuff. So Dame is kind of set up as the one who's going to break it, who's going to
Right.
break out and do his thing. And that's the impression you get. Donnie is just kind of in the background supporting this boy, and that's kind of the vibe you get, where it doesn't look like Donnie's the one that's being set up to go out there. Dame struck me as a little bit older and
Yeah.
and
They
and a
looked
little out
about
there.
about 16, 18, 18, 15.
Yeah, a couple years difference,
Yeah.
and you can see that play out. So you get a little flashback of that, little teasers coming in. But as you said, we get to the point where after the fight with Pretty Ricky Conlin, he steps down from boxing. He's spending time with the family. He's managing other fighters, and he has a Latino fighter, this champ of the world, in his stable, and he's kind of going from there. We also get to see the state of his family,
Right.
and what's going on. I mean, you get to see his mother, played by Felicia Rashad, having some health issues. Apparently, she's had a stroke.
That's right. Yeah.
Prior to that, we get to see the growth of his daughter, right, who goes from a fairly newborn baby in the last film to, what do you say, about 7-8 years old, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'll put her about that. She's hearing impaired, and you see the sign language and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sign language, but she's healthy, she's smart,
right?
So they're kind of showing you that that may be happening. Her mother's still kind of in the process of losing her hearing, but for the most part, the family's doing, they're doing well.
Right.
They're enjoying life. And then I'm pretty sure at this point we get to Dame. Right.
Okay.
Any thoughts on the introduction of Dame?
The introduction of Dame. I thought it was about right. Was he coming home on the bus?
Mm-hmm.
He's been out for a few weeks. He runs up on him on the gym.
Yep.
As he's coming out, introducing himself. I thought it was pretty accurate from what I've seen. Well, I'm not gonna go too. Well, I guess I will go too far. Well, I'll hold it off a little bit later. Because I liked the way that Jonathan Majors played the character.
Yeah.
Because going back to my past, coming out of high school, I used to up in Detroit. I used to work in the factories.
Okay.
And Dave Bing owns some factories. Legendary Pistons Hall of Famer.
Okay.
And one of the things he was big on is giving black men opportunities. So he would hire guys straight out of high school, hire guys that would be 30 years old with no work experience, but he would also hire a lot of ex-cons.
Right.
And I thought that Jonathan Majors got that right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you see, they kind of portray ex-cons like they're rappers, like they're just out there yelling and cussing and screaming. And he got the whole quiet type of, quiet fury type of thing going on. Because you can look at these guys and tell where they've been, but they kind of standoffish and they don't really, brag about it.
Right.
But you can tell, okay, this guy has been through something. And I immediately saw that in Jonathan Majors. Oh, he looks like the guys I used to work with in my early years.
I liked what you said when you talked about in your review. One of the things you pointed out was the difference in how he plays an ex-con. Most of the time we see ex-cons in a movie, black ex-cons, they're kind of over exaggerated. They're hip hop thugs in their presentation. They're speaking in a certain diction, they're kind of playing this out. He doesn't play that. He doesn't play that. He doesn't diminish Dame in that way. Dame is an intelligent cat. He's just been locked up.
Right.
That's it. But it's almost as if it's a statement in and of itself that black men can carry themselves in all kinds of ways, can be as intelligent as anybody or more, despite where they've been. And he's had plenty of time to work out a plan. He's got some seething anger, and you can see moments where he's barely able to control it. But he's still operating with this plan in terms of where he's trying to go and how he's trying to get there. And so he plays him in a different kind of way. And I need to say, especially about these two brothers on the screen, it's ironic that these two handsome, powerful, brilliant brothers, especially as actors, are doing their thing, but being ridiculed. And I just need to put this out on the table, ridiculed at the same time. One of the things we've heard in the last week is that, Jonathan, Michael B. Jordan, is kind of dismissed as corny. So we get to see this whole kind of blow up, on social media about whether he's still corny, about running into this woman that had, kind of messed with him in high school, or at least it's rumored her or one of the people she works with were calling him corny. So you get that. Right. But not long before that, Jonathan Majors was made fun of for having what they referred to as a slave face. And so here you got these two brilliant, handsome brothers doing their thing, and this is the reception they get. And this is coming out of the black community, right? Yet these two brothers are at the top of their game, and handling their business. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to play that clip early in the show, to give the brothers the props that they deserve, as far as that the brotherhood they developed, between each other, but also the carefulness and the care they put into how Black men are shown in this film. It's not just, pulling guns and there's a reason behind what's going on,
Right.
and there's pain. There's pain going back to childhood. Right?
Yeah. It's the importance of controlling your image. Now,
Mhm.
it's funny we talk about this because I've been having these Facebook discussions about this TikToker who dances and eats chicken and hops all over the place.
Mm.
I forget his name, but you know that kind of stuff. Because as Black men, we all have this collective image. And we talk about being profiled and treated a certain way. But when you have someone that makes us look bad, that reflects on all of us.
Mhm.
Because whether perception is reality. It's to how people see you.
Mm.
And it's good to see these guys out here to say, okay, we're not just dummies.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can do things bigger than that. And I do appreciate that, that they did that. But the Black male image, like you were talking about, it was important as to who wrote the film.
Mhm.
Because when you have Black men represent, writing our own scripts, telling our own stories and directing them, we get to control how we're seen.
Yeah.
But even still, going back to Michael B. Jordan, the whole corny discussion. And it's not just the fact that he was called corny in high school. People are ridiculing him now, like you were talking about.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, come on now. The guy is where he is. We can argue as to whether or not he should have said something, but just you respect the man's greatness.
Well, and I think one of the things that has to be said is the range of Jonathan Majors is ridiculous. The,
Yes.
the range in his acting, his expression. I mean, watching Ant-Man, and then a week later watching this.
Right.
Oh my God! I mean, I thought Dame scared me more than Kang. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Yeah.
But and then going back to the clip I played to see that Jonathan Majors talking up, Michael B. Jordan, that's when you get a feel for that range, and I think that's one of the things that's important as far as that, But this is this real quick. This is what people are dealing with. So this came out. I think this was a Twitter post. Shout out to Keep It 100. Let me see.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if I can fix this here. I don't know what happened to it, but let me add it again. There we go. So shout out to Keep It 100. He shared it on his community tab right here on YouTube, and I wanted to just post that up. So the statement is Michael B. Jordan is cute, but doesn't have any edge. He just looked, I don't know, responsible. He looked like he know where his birth certificate is at. You know what I mean? Like I never heard that as a critique before. That caught me off guard. Right. And then from there, this whole conversation about edge and and somebody says that not the copy. He keeps up with the original birth certificate, right? And she says
Yeah.
it's an expanding file folder with other important documents. Somehow this is a diss,
Right.
right? This is some kind of a diss. And I found it interesting that this is where it goes. So when we hear complaints about not being able to find Black men, on Black women's level and, intelligent and this and that, which has never been the case. It's really more about they're not finding the mystical, fantastical figures they've created in their minds. And they're
Right.
not usually prepared for, real everyday brothers, regardless of what level we operating on. This kind of statement in and of itself really just kind of sends, the image of Black men within the Black community down a little bit. It takes it down because it suggests that no matter how much you accomplish, it's still not enough.
Right.
It's still not enough. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. This is the kind of foolishness that we're dealing with in terms of how these brothers are represented. Right. But nevertheless, their acting ability, the story, it comes together well. And so Jonathan Majors in particular shines with 2 weeks at the box office at the top between Ant-Man and this. And personally, I think he did better in this, but I think that had more to do with the writing. Any thoughts for you about Dame, Kang, the two films?
Oh yeah. 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 I liked because Kang was one character. Of course, he was a straightforward villain, but and with Majors, I like the fact that he came in and you don't really see him right away as a villain. I mean, we know from the preview something is going on,
Right.
but you see how he's able to play Adonis and his family and get friendly with them. But the
Yeah.
thing about about Jonathan Majors, and someone mentioned this before, is that the man is the king of expressions when it comes to his face.
Yeah, man.
You
Yeah.
know, it really catches you. It's like, oh, okay, this is what's really going on.
hmm
You know, there was another movie he did this year. Someone said it was so great. I forgot what it was. I'm gonna look it up. It came out in January. But the brother's been this is the third movie this year, and I think you go back to last year in December with that he was playing a pilot
Let me see.
um
Oh, well, let me go
in the
to it.
Korean War. So he's had about 4 movies in the last 4 months.
He's been doing his thing. We can go into it here real quick and pull it up. You got Lovecraft Country, Last Black Man in San Francisco.
What was it called? Devoted?
Yeah,
Devotion.
Devotion. Yeah, he played brilliantly in Devotion.
I've got to check that out. I still
I
haven't
haven't
seen it.
seen Magazine Dreams. I've heard about it.
I've heard about that, yeah.
But I haven't seen it yet. The Harder They Fall, he played Nat Love. He did well in that. Of course, Loki, right? The introduction of Kang. He played in The Five Bloods. That was a good one. That was a Spike Lee flick. If you hadn't seen it, The Five Bloods, check that out. But yeah, his career is on the rise, and rightly so. He's talented.
Yeah, because when we talk about the range, and I said, okay, this is why they cast him as Kang, because he has to play all these variations.
Right.
And so you can see how he can switch up his personality for every movie.
Right.
And that's pretty dope. But yeah, wow, The Five Bloods. I forgot about his role in that movie.
Oh man, and the thing was, that was the first movie where I saw him developing physically, like he was in preparation for this. I don't know if it was Creed 3 or Ant-Man, but that was the first movie I saw guns on him. I said, whoa, it's because it really had nothing to do with the character. And usually you don't kind of see that. So I'm like, oh, I wonder what he's prepping for. And so it was good to see him kind of be able to do that. So shout out to him on that. So the range was incredible, as far as that. And I think the only thing that probably hurt him in Ant-Man was more the writing.
Yeah.
And not necessarily his performance.
Yeah. The big bad Kang losing to ants with lasers on their heads. That was weird.
Yeah, there's no way that should have been happening. But so, but you mentioned his facial expression. So we see him one night when he actually, is invited. Now, first and foremost, as you said, and you see this in the trailer, he's leaning on Donnie's truck. That's how he gets his attention. They have this, discussion where he reminds him who he is, and they go, have a little meal. And there's a moment where Donnie starts to pull out some cash.
Right.
To him, because he says, well, how you living? What's going on? He said, I just got out, and he's kind of, and you can tell, as you said, in his facial expressions, because he doesn't say anything.
Right.
At the mention of cash, he gets this look on his face like, he's offended.
Right.
He's offended. And this is I think I remember years ago the teen girls used to call it frenemies, right? This is where we get to see, what happens with men who've fallen out in one way or another, where one feels a certain way, but it hasn't been verbalized yet. There's been something that's taken place in the past. These two guys, one, still thinks of the other affectionately, but kind of disconnected from reality. The other has a deep memory of what took place and feels a way about it. He's pissed. And that's what you have here, but it doesn't come out right away because in many ways Dame needs Donnie to enact this plan. So he's you can see him at various moments. He's holding back a lot of rage and just trying to kind of present this friendly external kind of face. And I think one of the moments that really caught me, because I've had boys like this where we've parted ways after years and we've gotten back together, and there's this kind of thing there that isn't stated aloud, right? But when Donnie brings him into his home and introduces him to his wife and to his daughter, there's this moment where you see Dame interacting with the daughter. And Donnie is showing them how to sign some basic comments and whatnot. And, despite his rage and despite his anger, you actually see him engaging this little girl. Like, this is my boy's daughter. You know what I'm saying? It's a real little nuanced moment where, and this is the kind of thing that happens between friends that may have had a falling out or, are in the midst of one, even years later. You still have this moment where it's like, that's my boy's daughter. Look at this. You know,
Right.
So I like that kind of stuff. I like that kind of nuance because he didn't have any animosity toward the daughter.
Right.
He didn't look menacing like he wanted to, do something to the whole family. He actually, engaged the family in the midst of having this pent up frustration with Donnie, because
Right.
in a certain way, he feels like Donnie stole his life.
Yeah.
But talk your impressions on that moment, that
You
era,
know,
that time period in the film.
right. Because when I first saw the trailers for this movie, I remember watching Creed 1 and Creed 2, and both of those movies kind of mirrored Rocky.
Mhm.
Like the first
Mhm.
Creed, you have like kind of, when Creed meets Bianca and they have that love story along with him training to be a fighter, kind of reminiscent of what happened in Rocky when he met Adrian and he was training to be a fighter. And so you
Mhm.
had that mirroring each other. Then in Creed 2, you had the whole Drago thing, which was kind of mirroring Rocky 4. And
Mhm.
so I thought by these previous, this is going to be Rocky 3 again. This is going to be Clover Lang.
Mm.
Jonathan Majors is going to play.
Overland. Yeah, yeah.
That he's going to be this big trash talker.
Mhm.
And so I like that they switched it up to bring him in as a friend, like you were saying, and looking at his house and how this guy has come up.
Mhm.
So you don't see Damien explain any Dame explain, express any anger at any of that. He's
Mhm.
more or less proud of him,
Mhm.
which
And
I
he
thought
kind
was
of,
pretty cool.
yeah, because it's in a way it's not really a best friend dynamic. It's a big brother little brother vibe that they kind of had, which is
Right, right,
gives it another little twist in and of itself. They weren't just best friends. They weren't really equals. It was damn near big brother little brother
right.
because of the age difference. And throughout the course of the film, we find out that they were in a group home together, and
Mhm.
this is something that Donnie does not talk about, which is actually a theme in a couple of movies. Because even if you go back to the first ones, to the second one in particular, there's a moment where Donnie's wife, Tessa Thompson's character, Bianca, she
Mhm.
says, "What is this with you and secrets?" When he wins back his car, his father's car, in the second movie. Remember, he bet his car in the first movie,
Mhm.
lost it in a little scrap at the gym, and in the second movie he wins his father's car back, but he didn't tell anybody it was his father's car. So when he
Right.
wins it back, Bianca's like, "Why are you smiling?" He was like, "It was my dad's car." She was like, "Your dad's car? You didn't say this was your dad's car. What is this with you and secrets?" They play up on this in the third movie.
Yeah, because he's not open about his past with
Right,
Dame, what was going on in the group home.
right.
His mother, of course, knows. Felicia Rashad knows, but his wife is kept in the dark about all of that.
Yeah. And there's no seedy reason like he's got another woman somewhere, he's cheating on.
Right,
It's just too painful, and Donnie would like to just cut it out of his life.
right,
And for him, as far as he's concerned, he's almost successful doing that until Dame shows back up again, and all of those memories come to bear. And so, it speaks to the importance of, brothers, handling trauma, especially trauma out of childhood, the importance of it and how it can still mess with you in your adult years if you haven't properly dealt with it. Um, so what we know is, and again, we keep getting clips of this where they expand on the flashback more and more. We know that Dame has an underground boxing match, and I think it's underground, because he's the Golden
yeah,
Glove champ, right?
right,
But he has a match. He bets. He actually gives some money to Donnie, and has him bet on him that he's going to knock this opponent out in the first round, and he does.
Mhm.
So they're on the rise. Dame is on the rise. They're driving. They stop to get snacks at a liquor store, and at that moment, as Donnie's going in to get the snacks, he sees a man that they knew from the group home,
Right.
and
And I think,
immediately go ahead.
yeah, and that's probably why we talk about why he kept that secret, because we find out later that the man was abusive
Yeah,
towards them. I don't. I think it was just physical abuse. I
it
don't
was.
think. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, they talk
but
about it as him getting beat up. So Donnie is, and this is a grown man. This isn't a teenager. This is a grown man who's beating up on Donnie, and Donnie's got to be a preteen
right.
at the time this is happening. Now, I'll admit, my first thought is that he might have been molested.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did. I did as
I,
well.
I, I thought they were going to go that route because the extent to which Donnie would not talk about it, it was so intense that I thought something more. But apparently, he had been beat up by this man. Actually, I think a number of people, including maybe Dane, had experienced the same kind of thing. They kind of implied it wasn't just him, but either way, Donnie hauls off when he sees him, and then the guy's boys start to all jump on Donnie and beat him down. And this is where you see Dane, show up with a gun.
Right. And I'm not gonna be honest with you. I didn't necessarily think Dane was a bad guy at that point. Maybe we can go talk about what happened later, but I just thought, okay, this is a cool dude. Maybe he shouldn't have had the pistol, but later you find out maybe he should have had the pistol on him because it did save Adonis.
Yeah, it did.
But to me, he seemed like a stand-up dude at that point.
Right. And now Donnie's mother is not a fan of Dane. She doesn't like him.
Oh man.
She thinks it's a bad influence. And so even at the beginning of the film, you got Donnie sneaking out of the house to go to this boxing match with Dane and have this night that changes their lives forever. Right. So but anyway, I think it flips back to the film. And so, Donnie says he gives Dame a chance. He says, all right, come to the gym. I got a job for you. We need a sparring partner for the champ, and this is an opportunity for him to make some money. But he's letting, at the same time, he's letting Donnie know, I don't have a lot of time. You know what I mean? I'm an older guy. I don't have a lot of time. Shout out to BGS in the chat. He's like, I need to make this happen. And, and I want you to give me a title shot. And I remember thinking when I heard this is ridiculous. But Dame said something that kind of checked me. He was like, look, isn't that what happened with you?
Yeah.
Didn't Rocky get you a title? And I was like, ooh. Well,
yeah, he mentioned the whole thing with Rocky and Apollo. That Rocky was just a normal guy, regular guy.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apollo gave Rocky a shot at the title that built his career up. And then we see the same thing happen with Donnie. Right, where technically he's got a bunch of fights in Mexico, but nothing that anybody wants to really look into. Right, he's only had one fight in America before he goes up against Pretty Ricky Conlin. Right, and we're going back to the first Creed movie. So he's jumped from fighting in Mexico in barroom brawls, as it's kind of referred to one fight with, I think the guy's name was Spider, who trained at the same gym. No, not Spider. I'm sorry. That was one of Rocky's old foes. But one of the Latino guys he's at the gym with. And then he goes immediately to Pretty Ricky Conlin. Right. So Dame, has been studying all of this. And he's like, isn't that what happened with you?
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I realized, damn, he's right.
Yeah, but it plays on the intelligence of the character. And this is where we start to see, the villain aspect of him coming out, because he's pressing on Adonis. I didn't come out just to be a punching bag. Yeah. I mean, even going back to the restaurant, I don't want any handouts. I'm looking for an opportunity.
Right.
And and that course leads to something else at the party that we can talk about. But we see him pushing. Like he had this whole thing. Like he may have even had this planned out when he was going back to when he was in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and talk about that party. Right, so we see him. He starts out, kind of serving as a sparring partner for the champ, but you already feel tensions early on. That's going to go left. But at a particular point, Bianca invites Dame to come to one of her. I don't know I guess it's an album release, but she's a producer now.
Right.
She's not singing anymore, and that's actually kind of important. And, it plays a role in how Dame approaches Bianca. But talk a little bit about that party.
Yeah, it was like an album listening party, and the two of them, their careers kind of mirror each other. Because with Bianca, she was trying to be this aspiring star, but of course she has her hearing loss,
right?
And so she can't be out there on the road as often as she likes. So he looks at her as, okay, this is someone who had a great career that she lost. And he looks at himself and says, I'm someone who also had this great career as a boxer that I lost. So you see them kind of relate on that level when he asks her, like, what does it feel like to see someone else perform your music?
Yeah.
Your song. And that jumped out to me because I'm thinking to myself, he has to be thinking about Adonis. because it looks like he's saying, he's got my career because I was the promising boxer. I was the talented one. But here he is on top, and I'm just not getting out of prison.
Right.
So
he's actually looking at Donnie while he's having this conversation.
Right. And so, I said, okay, I see where he's going with this one.
Yeah.
But even still, it goes back to how smart the character is because, now she doesn't understand what that means. But if you know their history and watching the movie, up to that point, you understand what he means.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I thought that was pretty clever. And so from there, I think was it shortly thereafter, Drago walks in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, actually, it's right at that same time because Donnie leaves from talking to Dame to go over and talk to Drago. He's got his champ there. He's trying to get his champion and Drago in the ring. So he's trying to work the business. Mm-hmm. And Dame is just observing. So Dame has just watched this actually fairly beautiful songstress do her thing. She's singing, but she's singing Bianca's music. Right. So he's looking at Bianca, he's listening to the music, and then he's watching Donnie kind of schmooze and try and do this. And he begins to have this conversation with Bianca. Now, I didn't know. I was like, is he gonna hit on his wife? On Donnie's
I thought that was coming too.
I was trying to see like how it was gonna come out, but he doesn't. No. He doesn't. The conversation he has with her is devious, but it's not devious on those kind of crass terms. He doesn't hit on her. He doesn't, he's not trying to steal anything from her. He plays this mind game where he's just kind of like, basically including her in a way in what he's about to do, because he's tapping in and asking her, how does it feel to see someone else singing your music? And she starts out by saying, oh, it's fine. And he was like, nah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And he actually gets her to admit something that I don't think she's really admitted to Donnie yet, that it isn't easy for her to see someone else doing it. That wasn't her dream. So he taps into something and, has a little bit of a bond with Bianca that's really slick,
Yeah, and I love that they, because we keep talking about how this is important to be written by Black men. Because like you were talking, I thought he was going to say something crass and go into that Clover Lane character.
Oh, Clover
Lane. And be crass and disrespectful. But again, they give us a head fake on that. I didn't see that coming either.
Right. But then you have the big moment where somebody out of nowhere attacks Drago. Right. And I forget what you call those. I have one of those sticks too, but I forget what you call them. It's it's not a nightstick. It's one of those metal ones that extend out.
Yeah, those baton-like things.
Thank you. Yeah, them joints hurt. But anyway. But so somebody attacks Drago, and this is not someone we've seen in the film yet. But there's this fight that breaks out. They attack him, and I guess they kind of cracked his bones in his hand and his arm. So this fight that's supposed to take place now has to be pushed back like 6 months. Right. And so this creates some desperation of sorts because the champ and his overbearing mother, they're trying to get his career off the ground. And now this fight with the champ can't take place. So now it's a big question as to what they're going to do. And at that point, Donnie suggests that the champ fight Dame. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think, to me, it didn't make sense how that was going to go until they reiterated that Dame, he has an underdog story. He was the Golden Gloves champ, right? Mm-hmm. So they kind of sold the fight on those grounds. And I was like, okay, I didn't know how they were going to do that. Because this guy who's fighting him, he's going to fight his sparring partner? Like, who's going to want to see that fight? But the way they kind of sell it up, it kind of ends up making more sense than I thought it would. Any thoughts about the lead up to the fight with the champ or the fight itself?
The fight itself, again, because you show how smart Dame is, because remember, he had been training with the champ the whole time. Right. And it kind of, because when he fought him, you saw him, I'm gonna go back to when they were kids and they were coming out, Dame and Adonis was helping get Dame ready for the fight. And he was telling him, hey, this guy used to play football in high school. He's got a bad shoulder. You can attack that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we fast forward to the fight, and you see how Dame knows all this guy's moves because he's been training with him. Right. And you see him attack his arm in the fight. Yeah. You know, you
Yeah.
see, and it's like, okay, this guy's been gaming him the whole time.
Mhm.
That's why he wanted that fight so bad. But yeah, it's more of his deviousness or his planning that I thought was pretty cool, and how he was able to get him. I mean, even the whole fight. Of course, he fought him dirty, with going after his leg and the elbow and all that stuff. But
Well,
even go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, but even when we talk about that fight, I was kind of laughing the way Dame came in, because he wasn't a nobody. People were booing him, but even the expressions of Jonathan Majors, then you start to see the villain come out.
Yeah.
Where he's making this kind of crazy faces, like, yeah, I know you all hate me, but
Right.
I'm still gonna ruin this party for you.
Exactly. He's and some of I will say this is probably one of the most technical fights I've seen in the Rocky franchise. I mean,
Yes.
it's definitely if you're into martial arts, if you're into combat sports, you're gonna love some of the elements of it. Some of the things they don't explain everything, but if you know fighting, you'll see elements that might have you laughing or yelling out in the theater, because it's not the level of technical savvy that we've seen. Other Rocky movies, they're just kind of punching, they're going at it, but
Yeah.
he's they're real strategic in this film about fighting. You know what I mean? And I can even say, even watching the way Dame fights, he fights like somebody that's been fighting in prison. I mean, I'm
Yep.
seeing some 52 block style fighting, some defense work that's not, what you normally would see in a boxing ring, but he's using it. And then little subtle things, like when he cuts, the champ's face with his elbow, just little things
Yeah.
like that. It's like, what the hell? But yeah. So it's interesting.
That was huge for me, because I loved Rocky. I did, but those guys were just swinging wild and punching each other in the head, and I was like,
Right.
how are
Right.
they taking all of this?
Right.
But I love the way that they were actually, bobbing and weaving, putting up their guard, getting in their stances. They were using technique. And I said, these guys weren't just training, they were probably learning how to fight.
Right.
They know
Yeah.
how to throw hands for real.
Yeah, they were you could definitely tell they were getting work. They were getting some proper training, and that was actually included in the film, and it played out well. I mean, we got to actually see some really good fights, just fights that you really didn't know which way it was going to go,
Right.
because it was so technical in certain aspects. So, even though he's cheating, Dame takes the championship belt, and that's when you really see the journal's right. The villain comes out in the fight, but the real villain comes out after the fight, right? So once Dame claims the belt, there's a few things that happens to Donnie that same night. Do you recall?
The same night he took the belt?
The same night he took the belt, it took a while before he actually confronted Dame on the beach.
Right. You're talking about the reveal of his mother with the letters.
Yes.
Not
the mother's watching the fight,
right?
She knows where this is going. She
Right.
can see it, and of course she knows. So basically, we know. Well, go ahead, and you might want to tell them about the letters.
Well, we talked about they were in the restaurant in the first. I think when Dame first comes out of prison, and he tells him, I've been writing you for years. You didn't write back.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I guess he got a non-answer as to why he didn't write back.
Mm-hmm.
But then we find out later in the movie that he was in fact writing back, but his mother was intercepting all of the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept all this stuff in the shoebox and kept it from Donnie the whole time.
Yeah.
And so when Donnie goes back to visit his mother, they have this discussion, and she tells him, this is why, I didn't want you hanging around Damien, because you can't trust him. He's never looked out for anybody else but himself. And that's when she reveals the picture of the guy he's posing with who's in prison, who's also the guy who breaks Drago's hand at the party.
Exactly. So now we know that Dame set all of this up to push Donnie to get him in the ring, because Donnie's whole approach was, well, let's take it slow. We'll get there one step at a time. And as Dame had told him earlier, I don't got that kind of time. He's an older man. He's older than Donnie. So he's like, this needs to happen now. And so you can see he kind of initiated all of this. But the exchange, now there's a couple conversations between Donnie and his mother that I thought were incredibly powerful. And this was one of them, because he kind of gets to blast off at his mother once she reveals that she's had these letters.
Right.
She's got tears in her eyes because she knows on one level what she did was manipulative and it hurt Donnie, but at the same time, she's protecting him.
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah.
see, I go back and forth on this because on one hand, it's like, okay, I don't like, you want to go hard on her for
Mhm.
keeping the letters back, but
Mhm.
you forget the fact that, Adonis was Apollo's side baby.
Yeah.
And we find out later, of course, he left her
Mm.
to be with this other woman.
Mm.
And, he dies, the woman dies. Her family doesn't come and get him out of the group homes and
Right.
juvenile detention centers.
Right.
She's the one who steps up and takes him in.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of commend her for that, for
Oh, man,
taking on. Go ahead.
No, that's old school, brother. When's the last time you done heard about? I mean, that's some old 1940s levels. Like, I'm gonna go get my husband's baby mama's baby, and I'm gonna raise him. I mean, that is some old school right there. But she does it, and she does it in earnest. It's honest. She means it, and we'll get to that because she says a little bit more about that later in the film. But you're right? That takes a lot.
Right. And so I'm thinking, okay, so she did do that. And I can understand that she was trying to protect him because, Dame was an influence on him, a big brother to him.
Yeah.
He had been with him through the group homes. I guess it makes it seem like, I guess you could say Dame was protecting him while he was in the group homes or in the juvenile facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see her saying, look, if my son is going to make it, he can't have this negative influence in his life.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side, I kind of wish that once he did make it, that sometime in the 3 years after he retired, he'll say, hey, I need to show you what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hid this from you because I didn't want you to get derailed, but these are the letters that he's been sending you. So I think at some point she should have told him, but I couldn't get on her too bad about that.
Well, and some of that too was, Donnie had to own it because he didn't really try very hard to reach out to Dame in prison.
Right.
So, that's an element to this too. But he does say something in the midst of this argument that I thought kind of caught me out of left field, where he says that Dame was more family to him than her other kids. And he implies that the other kids didn't receive him well, which they never show you. We don't get to see the other Creed kids and the way they treat Donnie. But he says it right in that argument that they didn't really receive him as family. And so here you have Dame, who, at least when they were still running together, looked out for him. He had trust for Dame, a trust he never had with his own siblings. And he says that to her in the midst of this argument, right? So that, there was some, you could see there was still some pent up pain in a number of areas, not only Donnie's life in the group home, Donnie's life in juvie, but also in terms of what happens after because the implication that I think people run away with is once this rich woman comes to get Donnie, everything's good. He's living a Cinderella life. Right. They kind of give you that impression in the first film because he's growing up in this mansion. He's driving his father's car. He's working at this nice, white collar banking job.
Yep.
And it looks like he throws it all away to be a boxer, but there's actually a lot more to it. And you never see anybody else in that house but him and his mother. Right. But you get the implication that there was pain there for him too.
Right.
His family is, because as you said, he was the product of the side piece. Right. So the family treats him as such for the most part.
Right. And I think that's, because you talked about, that's something I wish we would have seen in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe in the first one or the third one.
Yes.
Because that's something that's referenced. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't know about the other. I forgot about the other kids.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a good angle to put in just as a compare contrast between the relationship with Donnie and Dame and Donnie and the other kids.
Yeah.
But like you said, we never see him.
You got to go back to Rocky 3 and 4 just to know that those kids, that Apollo had those kids, because you only see him for a minute. Right. I think he might have been, it wasn't when he was playing in the pool, but it was like a moment where you kind of, you know that he has kids. You get to see them briefly, but that's it. And then there's no mention of them from then on. Right. Even when they're putting her body in the ground, you don't really get to see, any of the siblings. You don't see any interaction. You don't know who is one of Apollo's kids and who isn't. So we don't get that, and that might have been an area where they could have given us a little more at some point.
Right.
To TKC in the chat, TKC is saying that they didn't watch the first Creed. I would tell you watch all three. I enjoyed all three films, for different reasons, but I thought they were all good. And this one kind of speaks to a certain maturation with Donnie and Michael B. Jordan at the same time, the actor and the character graduating to a level of mastery.
Right.
Important. So I would say watch all three. And if you haven't seen Creed 3 and you haven't seen any of them, in fact, I'd watch them in order. So by the time you go to the theater, you're caught up. And I think it would only enhance your appreciation of the third movie.
Yeah, I thought Michael B. Jordan did a great job in maturing the character.
Yeah.
Because we talk about in Creed 1, but when he was a guy with a chip on his shoulder trying to prove something, a loudmouth, braggart, we referenced the whole thing when he bet the Mustang that he can knock somebody and someone couldn't knock him out.
Right.
But then you get to this third film and he's more like the elder statesman, mentor, understands the cost of things, And so I like that evolution. So yeah, definitely like you were saying, 1 through 3 is a good watch. Definitely 1 and 2.
But the other part to it is he's not only the elder mentor, but he's the elder that is beating his own demons.
Right.
From Ricky Conlin to Dame, he's actually he's become a man. He's handling his own demons, taking it a step at a time and beating them, which is something we all aspire to in our lives because we all have demons, right? But to become that master in and of itself, it's not just mastering your craft, it's being able to confront and master your own demons. And so we get an implication of this, early in the film when he's fighting Pretty Ricky Conlin. In the first film, he's barely holding on. In fact, he gets knocked clean out, which is one of the most dramatic moments in the first film that almost had me shed a tear when he sees his father's face, because that says something about Black fathers and sons, which I think Coogler and Jordan were going for in that first film. But with this one, he becomes the father. He's his own man. He's not looking for Apollo in his head. He is fully realized in that way. And so now he's handling Pretty Ricky as an equal, both of whom, were champions. So he's not coming at him as the little boy begging for a chance. He's coming at him as an equal, and he's taking him down systemically almost, So it's seeing that level of mastery. We don't generally get to see that level of development for Black male characters.
And that reminds me, I don't know if you want to go in this direction, because there's been this discussion as to whether or not Rocky should have been in the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought, you have to have Creed stand alone as a man.
Yeah.
He has to be his own man.
Yeah.
And, he can't be that if he always has this mentor leading him. The first one, Rocky was teaching him how to be a fighter. And the second one, he gives him advice on how to be a father.
Right.
Okay, now he's done all that. He's become the champ. He's retired. He has his own business. He has his own roster of fighters. Now he has to be the alpha. He has to be the man by himself. He can't always have the mentor holding his hand. And I like the fact that Stallone was not in there, because if he wouldn't have been, and you wouldn't have seen Donnie mature into the man, he still would have been this lost son type.
Yeah.
And I think it was smart to keep him out. We can talk about I don't want to get
into no, we can do that. I mean, I would say this: if you're going to have him in, then be honest about what happens to mentors and mentees. So we know that Rocky was a surrogate father figure.
Right.
He wasn't even just the mentor. He was a surrogate father figure because of his closeness to Apollo. So in that, what happens to fathers and sons? Well, at some point, the son becomes the father and the father becomes the son. I mean, you get to the point, if you're blessed, where somebody is changing your diapers. I mean, it is what it is. This is the cycle of life.
Right.
So if you were going to have Rocky in it, I would have liked to have seen that point where, Donnie is not necessarily going to him for direction, but he's actually, also kind of taking care of Rocky. And they kind of imply that in the second film, because they have an argument, he and Rocky, and he says, man, who's been taking care of you? I've been here taking care of you. They kind of started to go there. But this is the natural progression of things. There, where fathers and sons, mentors and mentees, you still have respect for your mentor, but your mentor gets older, and you end up providing, if you have that level of closeness, you end up providing a sort of support system for the mentors. The mentor gets older,
Right.
You know, and that's how that process goes. So I'm in agreement with you. I didn't mind that Rocky wasn't there. I wouldn't have minded a mention, like he's still with his grandson or whatever. I think a mention wouldn't have been bad. But
Right.
if he was going to be in there, I think it should have showed us what happens with all fathers and sons and mentors and mentees in the ideal progression. You know, some people, we just fall out of each other's lives, you know, regardless of what we may have meant to each other at one point. But if it's an ongoing relationship, you know, you tend to change places in a way. And I know, and I'm saying this as someone, my stepfather just passed about a month ago. And there, you know, there was a point where I was a little boy. He was the man giving me direction. By the time we get to the end of his life, you know, much of it is the opposite way, you know, because of the natural progression of life. So I wouldn't have minded that. But I think you're ultimately right. I don't think the film suffers because Rocky's not there. It gives us a chance to see Donnie come into his own.
Right.
You know? So now we get to the point where Donnie goes to. I think does he have a conversation with Bianca that night after he talks to his mother before he goes to see Donnie?
When they have the fight and the daughter walks in, I'm trying to remember what that was about.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about his past because Dame dropped the name of the man that beat him to Bianca, and Bianca didn't know anything about it, and she's been pressing Donnie for information, and he doesn't want to talk about it. And she basically says, you need to get this together because our daughter can't see you acting like this. You know, you got to take care of this. And they kind of play on the whole men are macho and men don't handle emotion well kind of dynamic. But it ends up becoming a problem because he's losing his temper in front of his daughter.
Right.
But there is a point where he finally goes to confront Dame once he realizes what his mother has shown him, that Dame has masterminded all of this by injuring Drago just to get his chance to fight the champ. So when he goes out to the beach where Dame is, he's surrounded by his boys, and that's where you see the villain come out. If you don't mind, talk a little bit about your impressions of Dame as full villain at this point.
Well, one thing that jumped out to me, and again, this is one of these curves. Even going back to the listening party when we thought Dame was going to be disrespectful to Donnie's wife, we go to the beach, and I'm like, oh no, this is where Adonis is going to do something stupid. It's going to be a big fight in public or something like that. But I like the fact that, you know, I thought they have this conversation between each other, and he confronts him about what he did. Adonis does to Dame, and they get to arguing back and forth, and you see Dame cheap shot Donnie, and he goes down. So I'm thinking, okay, this is when it's going to be something stupid. You know, they're going to have this fight, but you see Adonis keep composure. You know, which is something you don't see because a lot of times, you know, you talk about how when you become a man and you have responsibilities, when you have a business, when you have a career, when you have a wife, when you have children, you can't be that thug all the time.
Right.
You know, because you know you got too many responsibilities to be that guy that's you know that's hood tough.
Right.
And at first I'm thinking to myself, oh, he should have hit him back. But I'm thinking, no, this is a man with responsibilities.
Right.
And he know he's gonna see him in the ring. So yeah, I like that part that he showed control, but also, you know, the whole reveal of the big villain, where he's got his guys and his goons around him, and he's mocking him and things like that. I said, okay,
calling him a coward. Yeah. But one thing to keep in mind, and this goes back to the very first Rocky movie, this is where you get something of why we're seeing Adonis like this in terms of his level. When you see the first Rocky movie, we're in the 1970s, and you're seeing Apollo as champion, wearing a three-piece suit, having conversations with mayors, planning events for charity. He's actively involved with politics. I mean, it's an interesting take because you get to see how different the eras have become and the role of a black heavyweight champion in the 1970s. It's a very different thing. He's actually active in the community. He's a politician of sorts.
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, we couldn't always get into positions. So a lot of the time, whatever position of prestige you reached, you used. And so we're talking about the era of the Black Panthers. We're talking about right after the Civil Rights Movement. Right. So a black champion in the 1970s is more than just a boxer. If you go watch that first film, Apollo Creed is balancing so many different things. And a lot of it has to do with politics. It has to do with improving the Black community. It has to do with working with kids. It has to do with dealing with politicians. This is so what we see in Donnie is really kind of a mirror of that in 2023, where it's not the same thing, but that level of mastery is there. And a lot of people don't remember that because you have to go back to the first and second Rocky movie just to see how Apollo handled business. He wasn't just this guy in red, white, and blue shorts in the ring.
Right.
He was a well-rounded character in a particular way. The way he was played was really quite brilliant, and it went past just being a boxer in the ring. So you see that with Donnie, and it goes to your point about why he doesn't just end up in a scrap on the beach with Dame. You know, he's a seasoned, fully realized, you know, champion and businessman. So he operates a little differently than he might have as just an impulsive kid. And this is where we also begin to find that the frustration Dame has is because ultimately Donnie ran away the night the cops showed up, the night, you know, Dame had pulled a gun to protect Donnie in his fear. Because what was he, like 13, 14?
Yeah, 13, 14, 15. Yeah.
He was a young guy. And when this all happens, the cops show up, you know, Dame puts the gun down, and, you know, they're clearly about, and you know, Donnie just takes off running. And Dame, of course, doesn't mention his name. He doesn't turn him in. So that's the last time they see each other until adulthood. And all of Dame's dreams are dashed. And in his mind, Donnie's living his life. Right. So this is where this begins. Anything you want to talk about from there?
Yeah. It no, maybe that's kind of some deep anime stuff, but yeah, I see that because it goes back to the whole conversation when he asks the wife, "What is it like to see someone sing your music?" And he was looking at Adonis when he said that, as to say, "This man has my life.
Yes,
this man has where I'm supposed to be.
Right,
is where I'm supposed to be."
Which is something he creates in his head, because what he does is he takes away Donnie's agency. Donnie didn't just get handed the championship.
Right.
Not even because he was a Creed. I mean, obviously Creed got his name, got him in the ring. There's no question about that. But at the end of the day, if he got knocked out in that very first fight with Ricky Conlin, that would have been what it was. I mean, Donnie had to be who he was to get to where he is. And I think that's something Dame overlooks. He just assumes that his life was taken, but that's not actually what happens. That's just what he comes up with sitting in a cell for that long.
Right.
When in actuality, you know, Donnie is a self-made man.
Right. And that was the callback, because I was watching the first one earlier today, and that was a callback to the first movie, because remember, he wanted to be Adonis Johnson. Was it Johnson or Jones?
I think it was Johnson. Yeah.
Right. He wanted to be Adonis Johnson. He didn't want to be called a fake Creed or told that he got what he had because of his daddy. Yeah. I mean, even going back to when he was going to see Bianca perform in the club, and someone called him Baby Creed.
Right.
And that triggers him.
Right. That triggers him.
You know, to even further when he has the press conference with Conlin.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're only here because of your father."
Right. Right.
You know, so you see, I don't know if Dame knows that, but you see Adonis have control to get past, not to be triggered like that, like he was in the first movie. You know, so you see the growth.
I would think that Dame probably was the first to know about Donnie's insecurities, because he was, you know, because Donnie was a kid.
Right.
I mean, so I think he did know that was something that Donnie was insecure about. But we can see the maturity of Donnie, because in that first movie, when he's called a baby Creed, you know, it ends up in a fight and he ends up in jail. This time, when Dame calls him that, you know, he's not happy about it, of course, but you don't see the reaction, because he's not as insecure as he was. He's not defining himself solely by his father anymore. He's realized he's matured. You know, I think at that point it's really more that this man would try to do this, knowing the history. You know, so from there, you know, we get to the point where he and Bianca, no, the mother after that, not long after, I guess I would say, passes away.
Right. The whole scene, she has a second stroke. She has the kidney failure, the organ failure,
and multiple organ failure.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's talking with her on the bed. I thought that was a powerful moment.
Yeah. And this was after an argument with his wife. So of course his wife is there, and you know, he goes into the room and he's having a conversation with his mother, and they're letting him know this is the end. This is the last. She's not going to make it long. So he knows this is the last conversation he's going to have, and he apologizes for the argument they had.
Right.
But she does something in this exchange that I thought was extremely powerful. You know, I don't know if it's dementia really, but she's in a state where she's not clear.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So he's apologizing to her as her son. If you'd like to talk a little bit about what she does, where's her head?
Yeah, it seems as if she goes back to the days when Apollo was alive.
Right.
And so she looks at him, and I guess she sees Apollo in his face.
Yes.
And she starts asking him, you know, why did you leave me? Why did you leave me for that woman? That was something else.
It was
part
powerful.
got me.
It was powerful because she sees her husband in his face, and she starts talking to Apollo, like you said, and you see this look on Donnie's face when he realizes she's not talking to him.
Right.
He's talking to Apollo, and I thought that scene was so well acted between the two of them, you know. And she starts to say, she says something that really hit me in the chest. She said, "Donnie saved me."
Yeah.
She said, "Donnie saved me." You know, she was talking about where she was emotionally. You know, first Apollo cheats on her, then he has this baby out of wedlock, and then he dies. And she is, you know, and you kind of get this in the first Creed film as well. She's lost. She's a little lost. When she goes in to get Donnie, she's a little unsure, and she's rightly lost. There's so much that's happened in a short period of time, you know, but we see the bookend, the other side of that, where she's saying, not only am I no longer lost, but Donnie saved me. Raising him allowed her to reconcile what was going on with her and Apollo in her mind. Right. So, you know, so we see this conversation being the last one they have. And that's powerful. It was powerfully done. It was well acted. You know, again, Michael B. Jordan is directing it and acting in that scene, and directing Felicia Rashad. I thought that was, you know, knowing that in and out of the film, I thought that was that part of it was great.
Yeah, I did too. I was it was people were cutting onions in the theater when that happened.
right. You know, so it's from there that he ends up actually following that with a powerful discussion with his wife. And I think in many ways, you know, I talk about, you know, what I call male relationship emotional labor, the emotional labor men play that they don't get credit for. And I think, you know, the conversation he has with his wife after just seeing his mother die, where he finally shares with her what happened in the group home, how he was abused. He opens up to her in a particular way. And then he says to her, this comes, you know, dealing with emotions comes easy to you, but it's not so much for me. And that's where you get the Bianca that's been talking to Dame. You get the side of Bianca that she's only shared with his enemy at this point.
Right.
And they end up, you know, being able to kind of, you know, come on an accord of sorts and relate and actually have a genuine conversation about where they both are.
Right. Because I believe at this point she kind of voices her frustration with her career on not being able to do what she wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we get to see that. And I think that's from there. It's from there that, you know, because there's also this whole sub story, and you made this point in your review as well, that there's there might have been too many stories going on that weren't, you know, handled to the fullest extent they probably should have been to make sense and to weave back in so the movie feels a bit more whole.
Right. That was my only complaint with the film. Not that the stories were bad. I love the daddy-daughter stuff. You know, with him and his daughter in the sign language. I thought that was pretty dope. Of course, Felicia Rashad's B story was great. And I was really interested in the whole thing with Felix Chavez and his mother, those characters.
Right.
Where you had the son, husband, mom, manager type dynamic going on.
Right.
And you know, I was like, are they really going to tell this story? And it's kind of like they started with the story and they just kind of stopped. She just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, you know, what are they going to do here? And I kind of, you know, that's the only thing that kind of bothered me.
Well,
Because a lot of these
they show up in the final fight sitting in the audience, but that's all you get.
Right. They didn't really weave those stories together
Right.
like they would. Because, even going back to the first Creed movie, we see where Donnie's going after Bianca. And that's, that whole courtship is about
Right.
introducing us to him as a character.
Right.
Then the whole thing with Rocky getting sick and how that is really about showing that, hey, look, if you're going to fight through chemotherapy, then I'm going to try to fight to be this fighter that you want me to be. So all those things neatly weave in. But in this movie, we got these B stories and they didn't really connect them at the end or finish them.
Well, I gotta say, you reminded me about Rocky and cancer. So I think we might have already seen the transition from the mentor to the mentee. We get a glimpse of it in the second film. No, that's the first film.
Right, it is, yeah.
The first film. So we get to see that transition pretty early. But the other thing you just made me think about is the first movie is really about fathers and sons.
Yes.
This one you see about mothers and sons, along with the daddy-daughter dynamic going on with Donnie. But there's a strong mother-son kind of dynamic happening as well. And so it's kind of interesting to see those things, because the other story going on is the daughter, and she's fighting in school.
Yeah.
And handling it. She them punches was coming from the hip. Like she had
four. I remember everybody in my theater went crazy when that happened.
So we see the daughter, who's very much like Donnie was in the first movie as a kid. She's hot-tempered. She doesn't take to being bullied. She's in a special school, but there are bullies everywhere. So she's dealing with her, and of course that becomes a point of concern. And it's funny to watch Bianca and Donnie kind of going back and forth in front of the teacher, trying to figure out how they're going to discipline this girl and what they're going to do about it. And Donnie is hot
because he didn't have a problem with it.
No,
for those who don't know, she was drawing a picture of her dad in the ring, knocking somebody out, and this girl comes over, grabs the picture and tears it.
Right.
To antagonize her. And of course she hops up, and next thing you see this little fist coming towards the camera.
Yeah, she did. Right. And so here you have a boxing father going, I don't got a problem with that.
Exactly.
The school has a problem with it. Bianca, her whole thing is that, this shouldn't be how she solves problems. And Donnie's more on, she needs to know how to defend herself, and so he doesn't really have a problem. And I was much like that. My son was in elementary school, so I know that vibe. He's looking at her like, what's your problem? She did what I wanted her to do. Matter of fact, he was upset. He said, why is my daughter in trouble?
Right.
But this girl is bullying her. So, but anyway, so you had that kind of story going on as well. And I agree with you. They probably needed to weave these in a little better. And that might speak to, Keenan as a writer still needing to develop a little bit more, because the first Creed movie felt whole. Like I felt like if there wasn't any other Creed movies, I was satisfied with the first one. It was a whole story in and of itself. All the B stories wound up well. He and his mother are no longer speaking when he's out there trying to become a fighter. And then before he goes in the ring in the final fight, she sends over the shorts that say Creed on the front, Johnson on the back. She figured out what he was going through, and she supported from where she was. And then you see her, crying, yelling, screaming in her own living room watching the fight. There's no communication with her son, but she's communicating with him, and he's in communication with his father in a symbolic kind of way. So to me, the first movie was done so well. I enjoyed the second movie. This one I really did like, but it just it needed some of those kind of technical tightening up. It just needed a little bit more wisdom, and maybe Sylvester Stallone might have been able to help with that, behind the scenes,
right?
But, as he didn't really like the dark tone of the film.
I don't know. I had mentioned that, like I said, I didn't want him in the movie, but behind the camera, I would have appreciated him there to make the story a little tighter, because I remember Ryan Coogler wrote the first one and Sylvester Stallone contributed, but in the second one, he had a bigger contribution. But in this one, he's just completely out of it. Now he's listed as a producer, but that was just probably some contractual thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into it, but he has some nasty words to say about the guy who owns the rights of the film.
I think he expected to get the rights back to hand down to his kids, and he didn't. So looked like he walked away from all this, and you know, he might have been able to add some spice, you know, to kind of round it out a little bit, but I still think it was a good effort. I enjoyed it. So we get at this point to the famous montage. You know, all the Rocky movies are known for it. They probably up gym memberships all around the country, boxing memberships. You know, I know after I saw Creed, I was like, oh shit, where's the nearest boxing ring in Fresno? Like, you know, and you get that here. You know, you get the montage. It's classic. You can't have a Rocky universe film that doesn't have the montage. As I said, both brothers in excellent shape. You know, so it's good to see black men at the top of their game in that regard as well. But we see Drago,
Right.
and that was something I didn't expect. So here you have the son of the man that killed his father, and he's such a master businessman, master, you know, at what he's doing. The son of the man that killed his father is helping him train for the fight, and that's something I just was like, that's another level. That's another level, because I might have, man, if I didn't kill that dude, I would never spoke to him the day of my life after that. But Johnny is much more savvy. You know, he brings him in to prepare him for the fight. He actually even expresses, because I think it was a deleted clip in the second movie where you get to see him actually have a conversation with Drago, because Drago doesn't have a personal issue against the Creeds. His father does.
Right.
And so, you know, there's this moment, I think it's a deleted scene where Donnie and Drago actually have a bit of a conversation. It's kind of one way. Drago's not the most talkative cat, but he's got his own issues in the second movie with his own mother and his own father.
Yeah, that whole thing was powerful too. That how she abandoned them.
Yes.
But tried to come back when he was famous.
Right.
You know, and everything was high. But when he got knocked down, she got up and walked out.
Yeah.
Left him again.
So, you know, so here you have this guy who's, you know, who's known for being this, you know, associated with the death of Apollo, but Drago has nothing to do with that. He has his own issues. And he and Donnie actually end up having a working relationship where he comes in to train Donnie and get him ready for the champ. And I thought that was brilliantly written. I thought it was brilliant to bring him back.
Right.
It would have been interesting to find out if his father was still alive or what may have happened since then. But it was still brilliantly done in that regard. So they have this epic, you know, training montage that's brilliantly done on both ends for both characters. You know, Dame is feeling himself. He's out at Venice Beach with the sunglasses on, working out, you know. But it's not like Rocky 3 where he's bullshitting and he's not really trying hard. He's working out, you know, he's preparing for the fight for real, but you can see him enjoying the spotlight a little. You know, he's in this nice spot. He's got this little honey laying next to him.
Yeah.
You know, out of nowhere.
That was a big upgrade from where he was.
Right. He went from nothing to this cute little, but he's champ of the world. So it makes sense, right? There's the reveal as far as, you know, when they decide to have the fight, where Donnie gets on, what's his brother's name? Stephen A. Smith's show.
Oh, yeah. They're going live, and Dame decides he wants to call in and trash talk.
Right.
Yeah.
And from there, you know, it elevates to a fight. And Steven is laughing. He's like, yeah, on my show, this is going down. So, you know, so they get to it. So the training montage takes place. We seeing Donnie pulling airplanes, and, you know, I mean, they're getting into it. And so we finally get to the fight. Any thoughts about the preamble, the up to the fight, you know, anything going on leading up into the ring? Any thoughts that you had at that point?
Well, that's what you pay to see when you go see a Rocky Creed film. I mean, the montages, the workout, that's just that's a part of the selling point. Like, so you knew it was coming. I was happy to see it. You know, I like seeing it. That's why I like the movie. But I was cool with that.
Right. I did as well. So, you know, we finally get to see them getting into the ring. Donnie's there, got his wife and daughter there, which I didn't expect. You know, the daughter's there. She's watching the fight. She comes through. We see the champ, the Latino cat. He's there with his mother. You know what I mean? It's all there. And Duke is in Donnie's head, and he's telling him, man, you know, this isn't. You don't owe this guy anything.
Right.
You know, and he says something that I thought we hear it in the trailer, but it hit me a certain way in the midst of the movie. You got to step out of what was and into the moment. You know, you got to step into what it is, what's really going on. This is not your friend. This is not the same dude you knew before, you know, the arrest happened. This is he's trying to take. I mean, he says early in the film, he's telling you who he is.
Right.
You're not paying attention. He's showing you who he is. And so, you know, really what Donnie is confronting in the ring is not just this man, but also the memory of him. And I think for me, it's one of these things. Okay, I'll put it to you this way. If you're a brother who has known some success in your life, more so than some of your friends that you grew up with.
Right.
There are some of us that have this experience where it's like, you know, what is a survivor's guilt? You know, do I deserve to be here? Should I have been able to get where I am? Seeing how many of my boys got locked up or killed, or who are just surviving, doing some stuff every day they can't stand, just getting through day by day. But if you've had some kind of success in your life, dealing with whether or not, you know, how do you feel about it? And I thought it was interesting because you can't help but, growth talk with Kofa saying it in the comments, survivor's remorse. Thank you. You know, you have this kind of, you know, do I deserve to be here?
Right.
You know, why me? Why not him? And you know, and then how do you deal with some of those people guilting you for having succeeded? So it's an interesting kind of question. They didn't downplay Dame as just the poor ex-con who's lying to everybody. I mean, that element is in the story, but he's still a human being, and he's still played as a human being that's experienced pain. But then on the other end with Donnie, there's this whole question about survivor's remorse. You know, how do you handle success? And I think this is a question that's really important for Black men who have had some modicum of success. You don't got to be a millionaire. You just got to be able to live better than some of the people you grew up in, to feel that and to really begin to ask yourself those questions. And I think Donnie is dealing with that in the ring. You know, look, because you see moments where they both see each other as the kids they were.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know if you want to skip to that part, but
let's go to it. Let's do it.
Yeah, because I was going to talk. Well, the whole thing, you would talk about that whole thing about having remorse or survivor's remorse. That's something that you talk about. We have throughout the Black community. You know, I've seen that with Black neighborhoods that have been in upper middle class, where they're wealthy people. And you know, successful people, but they still talk about where they came from and how bad things are, and how we have to do something, or they feel obligated, or they feel guilty for having the success, like you were saying, as if they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that was important because he wants him to know that this guy doesn't feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
He's coming to take what you have, so you have to have that same mindset when going after him. You know, and we can talk about. Well, you want to go on?
No, let's do it. Go wherever you feel. I think we've gotten far enough. Just take it wherever you want to take it.
Oh yeah, because we can talk about how and this is where I get excited again, because I love the fighting sequences. And we can talk, you know, the whole thing with I thought the fight between them was great. Now the thing that was controversial, everybody keeps talking about, is what happened in the 11th round.
Okay.
When Michael B. Jordan takes this, I guess you could say, unique directorial choice.
Yes, right.
Now I loved it. I absolutely loved it. A lot of people hated it. You know, where the crowd goes away.
Right.
It's just no noise. It's just two of them looking at each other in this ring together. You know, and I thought it was dope.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think for me, you know, because you talk about the relationship in the final fight between what's going on in the film and anime.
Yes.
And I cannot speak to that intelligently. So I loved your take on that again. Listen to what he might say about it tonight. Also go back and listen to his spoiler free review of Creed 3 to get into that, because it's brilliantly done. What I thought of when I watched that, so the audience disappears and it's just him. And if you've ever competed, you know, especially in a sport, if you basketball, I know I did wrestling for a while. There's and it's particular, especially in sports like boxing and wrestling, where it's just one person on, you know, two people going at each other. But you've experienced it in basketball and football. You get tunnel visioned at
Yeah.
times because you're dealing with all of this stuff. And it's interesting because you got people who are terrified to get on stage or terrified in front of all these people. But then once you're in it,
Yeah.
if you're focused on what you're doing, you're so far in it that there almost isn't an audience at times. There almost isn't, people, there aren't people there. You're just dealing with what's in front of you. And I think that to me is what I was experiencing in that moment.
Right.
It's like nobody else exists. We're dealing with this man on man. We're gonna work this, we're gonna handle this. But you approached it a little differently. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. The anime aspect of it, or the
Sure. Whatever you come.
it's kind of, I don't want to get too dorky, but I heard someone describe it as Goku versus Majin Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z, and the way they were squaring off is because the way they were squaring off with each other. And I had to go back and look at that because Goku's the good guy, Vegeta's the bad guy, but at this point in the anime, he had gone from being a villain to a good guy to a friend of Goku. But still Goku thought. But then there's this point in the anime where Vegeta gets an opportunity to surpass Goku in strength. And so he sort of makes this deal with this character. I guess we'll just say he makes a deal with the devil to gain this strength. And so Goku is stunned. Like, why would you do this to me? And he said, well, the thing is that Vegeta has always been jealous of Goku because Vegeta works hard, but he's never able to surpass Goku. So he has this line that I think is so cool where he says, he's stolen my honor and he must pay for his debts.
Okay.
And so you see them have this fight. And that goes back to where I thought about Donnie and Dame, where he looks at this guy that has what he's supposed to have and feel as if he's stolen it from him.
Right.
So you see this envious that he has over him. And I thought that was a good parallel, not just in stylistically, but also in the writing. But speaking to it, and I love the part you mentioned how the sound goes away because I played football in high school.
Yeah,
And when it's like it's bizarre. When you're on the sideline, it's loud, but when you're in the game, especially when it snaps, you don't hear anything. Anything. It's complete silence. And I thought that works if you, like you said, if you play sports, because I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
All the time. And like you said, the nervousness is there because you feel as if they're just throwing you out there. You're not equipped. But all of a sudden that training and that practicing just kicks in and you just become this machine, so to say.
Right. And you can't understand it unless you've been there.
Right.
Unless you've experienced it. And you can experience it in a lot of different contexts. I'm not saying it's just sports. I'm just saying you have to experience that to really appreciate that moment in the fight. Otherwise you might dismiss it as, ridiculous, but really it has a lot to do with where those two fighters were. I mean, these are two men that have known each other most of their lives. And, there's some real issues going on. Donnie has a little bit of guilt because he knows he never really did reach out to Dame. Dame is angry at him. There's a lot of tension there. He's seeing all this life he could have had and didn't, so there's a lot of that tension that needs to be worked out. The fight. Now, this is the big thing. The special effects across the board.
Oh, I loved it.
The slow motion. You even talked about the rippling in people's skin when they get hit. Slow motion. I mean, that was brilliantly done because I remember Sylvester Stallone talked about the older Rocky movies, and he was saying that back in the day he used to use gunshot sounds and cannon sounds for punches. And he kind of I think it was in Rocky Balboa, he kind of stripped it down and brought it back to a human level. But in this film, they kind of took the human level and went squared. Like it just went to a whole nother degree where it's not like you're getting these fantastical, bullet sounds when people are getting hit, but you're seeing the musculature move in response to the punch.
Right.
When Ricky Conlin gets hit in the stomach, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe for about 20 seconds. He was on the mat trying to get a breath. And if you've never had the wind knocked out of you in a fight, you don't know what that's like. You want to get up, want to respond, but you can't breathe.
Because I was one of the things that that jumped out to me is when Dame hits Adonis in the gut, and you see him bow over, and the sweat
Yes.
bounces off of his back, and you see the expression. I said, "Oh, that's Dragon Ball Z." But yeah, that's Goku and Frieza. But yeah, that whole fight, I loved it.
It's that look where you like, I can't tell if something broke. Like, did something break, or is he just in pain? Like, you don't know where it's gonna go because he looks like his world has just been destroyed.
Yeah,
But I appreciated that. I appreciated the drama of the fight, and then of course you get to see this incredible level of skill from both, because
yes,
Dame has been skilled since he was a kid, and he's got unknown talent that the world hasn't seen, and yet you're in the ring with not only the former champion, but he was trained by Rocky. He grew up, and you saw this in the first movie. He grew up watching every fight his father ever had. He memorized the fights. Remember, and if you remember in the first movie, he goes home and he's watching his father fight Rocky.
yeah,
And he takes Rocky's position in the fight against his father.
right.
But at the end of the day, what you still know is he's memorized this fight. Because that's all he has of his father. The only thing he has is watching his father in the ring. He's never got to talk to him. He's never got to spend time with him. The only way he can connect to his father is watching his fights. So you got someone who's been really trained by both Apollo and Rocky. You've been in a jail cell. Donnie is not this 13-year-old kid anymore that just slid in on his father's name. He's actually, I said this before, he's realized, but he's realized because he's been trained, he's been tested by fire. He's actually earned every step he's taken. So when these two get in the ring together, little brother ain't little brother anymore.
Right.
And Dame even says it, man. He said, it looks like you learned a few moves.
Oh yeah, I love that. That part cracked me up. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. Shout out to Officer Charles. Said I wrestled in times where I was in a third overtime for my first championship. Sometimes that raw masculinity and animalistic drive pushing through, and that's the respect that you give to your opponent. Real talk. Real talk. Anything else you want to add in or reflect on? Anything else you want to share? As we're kind of at the end of the film.
Yeah, and that was another part that I liked at the end where they kind of made up. I thought it was going to, like, again, in one of those loops where it's going to be like, this dirty rivalry between us, but they sat down and they had to talk, and finally you see Adonis come clear and say, "Hey, I should have reached out."
Yeah, he says it to his wife Bianca. He says, Dame ain't gonna understand nothing but with this fight. It actually took the fight to get to a point where you could have a conversation.
Right, but you know what? That's real. That's real life.
Yeah,
I've had fist fights with my homies. We had to just get it out.
Yeah, to get it out. Yeah,
but the next day we cool again. But we had to have that fight.
Well, women like Bianca just be looking like, why don't y'all just sit down and talk? Nah, it don't work that way, baby. It don't.
Nah, we gotta throw hands on this.
We got to get this out. You gonna respect this. Before we have any conversation, you gonna respect this. I gotta put this in your face real quick. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. My what ended up being my favorite part of the film was that conversation.
Right.
Because I got to see two grown men, and this is why I started today's video with Jonathan Majors, really presenting to Michael B. Jordan this award. I started that for a reason, because my favorite part of the film was the discussion they have in the locker room after the fight.
Right.
And it's two grown men who are now able to talk about what they brought to the table that was problematic, where they actually are as two brothers. Because again, if you have, most of it, if you have a boy that was your boy back in the day, and for whatever reason y'all split apart, when you're finally able to have that conversation, there's a lot of shit that comes out. There's a lot of pain there, that would draw you away from hanging with this brother who you've known you almost your whole life. And they have that conversation, but they don't have it. It's not written the way two women would have that conversation.
Right.
It's written the way two grown men would have that conversation. Both of them own what they brought to the table, for better and for worse. Both of them reconcile but they don't reconcile in a way, where there are hugs and kisses and we're gonna go to dinner tomorrow. It's done the way men do it. We may or may not talk again. That's
Right.
not the point. We may or may not hang again. But at the end of the day, we've worked this out.
Right.
With this moment, we've worked this out. Where it goes next, who knows? But the conversation they have, it isn't long, it isn't wordy, but it was real to me.
Right.
It was real. I've been in that situation with with a boy that I had for a long time, and we parted ways. That was very much like it was, minus the bruises. We didn't go that far, but I appreciated that because I think at the end of the day, and this might go to the Kuglers, showing two black men resolve an issue.
Right.
Because I wasn't sure where it was going to go. Dame is unpredictable. I didn't know, what might have happened at the end of that fight, but to see those two men sit down, look each other in the eye and say, this is what's up.
Right.
And part ways with a mutual respect. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's why I started this video with brotherhood, not only except it's mirrored because it's happening, off the screen, but that's what I want to see more of, because I think, in this moment that we're having as black men, the potential is crazy. The potential as to what can happen is off the chain. But at some point, if we don't figure out how to reconcile as black men, where it goes from there, so I appreciated that moment, but that's just me. I'm not saying you're going to have the same kind of revelation when you watch it. For you, it might just be a, whatever. But for me, that was a big deal.
Right.
That was a big deal. But yeah. So, any last thoughts you want to share about any of this?
No, I concur. I'm interested to see what happens next. I've heard people speculate about his daughter having a movie a decade time from now, whatever. But I'm looking for. There were rumors of having that Drago having his own movie.
Ah, okay.
I'm looking forward to that. But overall, like I said, I had some issues with the stories not weaving in, but I had a great time watching it.
Yeah.
It's something I definitely want to see again now that I think about it, having this collab, because there were some things that I missed that I can look back on and say, okay, that was better than what I thought it was remembering. But I had a good time watching it.
Yeah. I'll admit, I've been wanting to see Mr. T come back in so I can find out what happened to Clubber Lang, but you know what? I can live with it. Creed was good enough for me to enjoy what took place. I would like to see, Sylvester come back in some kind of writing capacity at the least. I've been watching his show that he has. I think it's on Paramount, where he plays a mafia boss. And oh man, the name of it escapes me at the moment.
Something in Tulsa,
Tulsa King. I
Tulsa
think it's
King.
Tulsa King. It's actually really good.
Oh, okay,
It's
I haven't
actually
seen
really good. It realistically, it's about manhood. That's really what it ends up being about in an interesting way. Because he's old school, and even within the mob has become kind of not millennial, well, maybe millennial. Like he brings in an old school masculinity, and then when he comes to Tulsa, it's seeing him, address all these new school approaches to manhood with a very old school masculinity, and you kind of see this moment where there's not a moment. You get the sense that Sylvester is saying there's something that's been lost in manhood today. And so his character is constantly kind of showing people what manhood can look like. So if you get a chance to watch Tulsa King, you might enjoy it. I did. And just as an aside, I would also say Picard just started back up, season 3 of Picard. First 2 seasons, questionable, but so far, this is looking like Star Trek again. So if you're a Trekkie, go check out Picard. It's also on Paramount. You might enjoy that. But look, man, I just want to thank you for coming up and especially on your birthday, brother. We appreciate it. It's good to have you here. Y'all can see at the bottom of the screen, shoot Layman's Journal some support. Go subscribe to his channel. Check out what he's doing. He's doing some excellent work. Anything you want to say before we close out?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me up for a second time. I always have a great time coming on here, and I've been following you for a while, and I was glad that I can come in and contribute to the conversation.
Oh,
But
man.
yeah, we have these conversations over on my channel. I review entertainment media, but like I always say, entertainment media is not just entertainment; that it's propaganda through art. And what we do is I delve into the hidden messages in between for the deeper meaning.
Mhm.
And so if you come on over and have it, subscribe to my channel, we'll have a good time. We'll talk about stuff like this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think my son likes your channel better than mine at this point. He's I think as soon as you said anime, you got him. So
Oh yeah, I think I just reviewed Berserk a week or so ago.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about Attack on Titan. Comes back tomorrow.
Okay.
So I look forward to that.
All right. That's what's up. Thanks a lot, bro. Appreciate
Absolutely.
having you. All right, man.
All right.
Okay. So as you guys know, Artisan wasn't able to make it. He had to work. So I'm sure he's gonna do his own. I think his show is still, he does Sunday mornings Pacific time at 11. And I'm pretty sure he'll probably talk about Creed because he saw the movie. He just had to work at the last minute, so we weren't able to have him. But I appreciate you guys coming through. Just want to, let me see here. Just want to share this with you guys before we close out. Got some new merchandise you might enjoy. So check it out when at your leisure. Here we go. So just put these together and put them out the other day. So these are basically as you can see here, Black Boys Joy, right? So we got some shirts here. Some stuff for the kids, particularly the boys, got some mugs, but go check out Black Boys Joy and support if you will, right? This is the Institute for Black Male Studies website where I keep all my, merchandise here. Right. So go ahead and check those out. But the newest additions to it are the Black Boys Joy merchandise. So check it out if you can. Much appreciation for y'all coming through. Hope you guys have a good night. I hope you go. Look, I'm gonna tell you straight out. I am supporting Creed 3. I like both of the other Creed movies. Go check it out. Give me your thoughts about what I missed. Let me know what else kind of struck you when you watched it. And let me know what you thought. We appreciate it. And I appreciate you supporting the channel. So again, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support so we can continue to do this. And look, y'all have a good weekend. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.